Today's episode comes to you from the Blue Chew studio. Right now, when you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the third for free with promo code 83weeks at bluechew.com. Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. Eric, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm in Philadelphia, beautiful hotel right downtown Philadelphia. Summer day here. It's like in the 90s. It's awesome, and have a big weekend coming up.
It is WrestleMania weekend. It is Power Slap weekend, and it's Real American Freestyle weekend. Before we talk about what's to come, let's talk about last week. We tried something a little different here on the channel, Eric. For years and years, you and I have been chatting it up about the old days of WCW and, of course, talking about the current product. But last week, we tried something a little different. We actually recorded this in late January. Maybe it was early February. I think it was the very first few days of February. You and I found ourselves in Atlanta, and we went to AFX Studios, hooked you back up with Andre, got the band back together, and I thought it was a really, really cool look behind the curtain of how the sausage was made creatively when it came to the visual effects of WCW. That was a really fun episode, man. What'd you think?
No, it was fun. You know, it was certainly fun for me. Excuse me, to connect with Andre again, because it had been a long, long time, and he hasn't changed a bit, really. But it also gave people insight into just how much work goes into some of the stunts and the things that they see on television that, you know, you don't really think about it. You just enjoy it. You don't sit there and, you know, try to figure out how it's done. But Andre did a great job of taking us through the process and the art, the conception, production, and then the execution. So I thought it was very interesting.
Check it out in the archives. We talk about the big gold belt. We talk about Wildcat Willie. We talk about Hogan's head sculpt from the build. Maybe it was a go-home episode.
That was still weird. It was weird.
It is. I mean, it was so lifelike, and given what's happened in the last year, it had to be even more surreal for you, right?
Yeah, it really, really was. When I first walked in, truth be known, I didn't say this to anybody that day, but you know, when I first walked in and I saw the finished product sitting there, it's like, yeah, I can't look at that. You know, it was too weird. It was too weird. But yeah, you know, after being there for a little while, it was easier. But yeah, it was because it was so lifelike. I mean, it's weird.
Check it out. It's a tour of a place that a lot of wrestling fans have heard about, but they've never actually gotten to see or gotten to know Andre. And we were excited that he was able to make an appearance here on 83 Weeks with us. We're going to talk about what's been happening in wrestling in the last week, and we're also going to talk about what's to come this weekend. And we're even going to be breaking down some of Eric's most classic and favorite WrestleMania moments. It is WrestleMania weekend. Let us know in the comments below what some of your favorite WrestleMania moments have been through the years, whether it's a match or maybe there's just a famous shot or some sort of moment. That's what WrestleMania has become about. We will be talking about all of that today, but hey, let's talk about why you're in Philadelphia. Real American Freestyle on the docket again. It feels like you guys just had an incredible show in Tampa, and now you're back at it again in Philly. And this is really loaded with some pretty recognizable names from the MMA community and certainly a who's who of wrestling. Chat us up about the card this Saturday at Real American Freestyle.
It's going to be a big night. And there's a lot of great matches on the card. I'm not going to walk people through all the matches, but a couple key ones that I'm looking for performances. That is Real Woods. Real Woods was one of the athletes that early on I kind of suspected was going to be really, if not the face of Real American Freestyle, certainly one of the leading stars on the roster. And he's a phenomenal wrestler, but he's had some tough matchups and he really needs to get a win. in order to have any kind of momentum and a chance for a title here at Real American Freestyle. So I'm looking for a big performance out of Real Woods. I'm hoping for a big performance, I should say, out of Real Woods. Kyle Snyder, now this is the only second time we've seen Kyle Snyder, of course, gold medal winner, great athlete, great guy too, by the way. I want to see more out of him. I mean, like I want to enjoy watching him wrestle more and compete more because he's really a phenomenal athlete. We've got a big surprise. You know, I love surprises, right? We've got a major announcement that's going to take place on the show, and I think it's going to stir up quite a bit of interest. So a lot of great things to look forward to, and it's going to be a fun night. Our 8th event already. You know, we're looking at Dallas next month, St. Louis after that. We've got some big announcements that are going to come during the course of the week in terms of growth for Real American Freestyle. It's hard to keep up with, to be honest with you. It's really fast-paced growth and development, and we're excited about it.
Go see the entire card at realamericanfreestyle.com. That's also where you can pick up a ticket. There's still a handful of tickets remaining. Or do what I'm going to do and be watching on the Fox Nation app. You know, listen, let's be honest. I know WrestleMania is on the same night, but we also know WrestleMania is going to have a lot of dead time between the matches. So I'm going to be doing a split screen experience at my house, and I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to this. If you've missed a Real American Freestyle, the good news is if you go sign up for Fox Nation right now, for just a few bucks a month, not only can you see the Real American Freestyle event, RAF08, this weekend, but you can also see the first 7, all available for you right now on the Fox Nation app. You can hit that QR code, or we'll have a link in the description for today's show. But it is loaded, man, one way or another. Everybody's talking about wrestling this weekend. Before we talk about WrestleMania, we are, as you and I are recording, we're lunchtime on a Thursday. Last night, we crowned a brand new AEW champion, Darby Allin, and what a lot of people would have to believe is an upset. Picked up a very quick victory over a worst for wear MJF. MJF and Kenny Omega pushed it to the limit. I think they wrestled nearly 50 minutes on Sunday night. One of the more hard-hitting matches you'll see of MJF's career. As the story goes, he showed up to the building yesterday and had no idea that Sunday the announcement was made that Darby Allin, following his win over Andrade El Idolo, was going to cash in his title opportunity. He wanted this title shot not at the pay-per-view in Queens, not at All In Wembley. He wanted it in his hometown of Everett, Washington, where he first trained to be a wrestler. Friends and family in the front row. Max was caught off guard, wasn't prepared, and after 4 coffin drops, Darby Allin is your champ. They brought out a welcoming committee. All the baby faces from the locker room come out to celebrate with Darby. And then who else is there? The man who gave the pregame speech to Darby moments before, his mentor, his former tag team partner. It's Sting. So Sting and all of the baby faces anointing one of the pillars of AEW, Darby Allin's first world title win. And I guess it's been a little controversial, more so than I expected. What do you think?
I guess I get it on paper, but it didn't come off well. I'm trying hard not to be critical. It's not something I would have done. I don't think it's something that the audience appreciates. I looked at some of the commentary on AEW's social media feed, not somebody who's critical of AEW or a talking head in the internet wrestling community like me. I'm talking about the AEW social media site, and the feedback based on that announcement suggests to me that it might not have been the best decision. And Darby's, look, he's a great performer in many ways. He's fun to watch. He's obviously very committed, but he weighs about $145 and just doesn't look like a heavyweight world champion. And at some point, casting matters. This is an entertainment property. This isn't a real sport. This is entertainment we're talking about here. And just like any movie or television series, you need to cast it properly. And this is really, really bad casting. To squash MJF, regardless of what you think about him, good luck with it. That's all I can say. Good luck. I hope it works out. I hope it's a better move than I think it is. I hope it's a better move than a lot of the audience, at least those who responded to social media, which are always the most negative and the loudest. But again, these are the sickos that are gagging on this stuff. So let's see where it goes. You never know. It could be a brilliant move. So brilliant that none of us can make sense of it initially, and only those that are operating at a higher level of enlightenment can see this as being something that makes sense.
Well, it does feel a little bit like long-term storytelling. I think these guys have wrestled 3 times now. MJF won the first 2 with the exact same hold that Darby won with. So I do think this continues the story. As a reminder, MJF is from Long Island. The next AEW pay-per-view is in Queens. So it does feel like we're going to have a rematch. This match, of course, took place in Darby's, I guess we'll call it hometown. I think that's probably where they're headed for the May pay-per-view. But there's a report immediately after the show last night that says MJF is expected to film at least 1 movie after he dropped the AEW World Championship to Darby Allin on last night's Dynamite. So I guess Hollywood calls, and we're hoping that he'll be back sooner rather than later to sort of see where this story goes. But not everybody was in favor of it. Road Dogg, who almost never comments on AEW stuff, well, now he's outside of the tent of WWE. And he quote tweeted a discussion on social media this morning about, hey, what'd you think? And what Road Dogg had to say was, there is no right or wrong. They did it. It was the decision made by the decision maker. I feel it should have been someone else, but I don't know the intricacies of the business/life situation of the talent involved. That's important context that I think a lot of times we gloss over. But if we know that MJF is leaving to do a movie, and we know that maybe some of the other talent already have a long-term storyline in place, maybe it makes sense to slide it in here. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But even Dave Meltzer, who at times has been framed as the number 1 AEW defender, to the point that a lot of people speculate he's on the payroll, and he's not. Here's what Dave had to say. When you say Darby's the right guy, I completely disagree. As far as doing a title change on a Wednesday TV, that's fine. To me, the world champion should be the top guy, but certainly top 3 or 4 in your company, and he's not. Now, I think this is interesting because he's talking about being an in-ring performer and saying that he's not in the top 3 or 4. We know how Meltzer felt about Hulk Hogan. I don't think he would ever rate him as one of the top 3 or 4. But I do feel like maybe Dave is of the opinion that, hey, if we're saying this is where the best wrestle, then it needs to be Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay or Okada or Takeshita. I don't know. It does feel like the Darby story would have been one that I thought you would get behind, Eric. I mean,
he doesn't look like a wrestler. I mean, that's been a consistent problem with AEW in cases, and not across the board, but generally speaking, you look at that roster and very few of them look like they could possibly be mistaken for a professional wrestler. There is a presentation. There is an aesthetic. There is a larger than life component to successful professional wrestling. And Darby Allin, he got great makeup, no doubt about it. Makeup is top game. But come on, is there any believability in this? Is there even an attempt to make it look believable? And I'm sorry, Darby Allin is just not a believable heavyweight professional wrestler. He should be in a cruiserweight division somewhere. I don't know, but nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying it. It's bad casting.
Just so I'm clear, do you believe that Rey Mysterio should have ever been the world champion, or do you think that was a mistake as well?
I don't think anybody bought it. I think Rey Mysterio had established himself long enough with the audience. They loved Rey and accepted him for years before he became a world champion. That allowed him, the opportunity to slide in there for a cup of coffee, but it didn't have any legs. It couldn't have any legs because it's not believable. Sure, you can pull it off and you can get a short-term pop, and it's kind of a bridge position for a guy like Ray. But first of all, AEW is not nearly in the kind of condition that WWE was in when they made Ray champion, number one. AEW is kind of in a fragile state right now with regard to its relationship with its audience. They've been picking up some ratings since the Nielsen numbers shifted, so I guess that matters. I don't know how ticket sales. I'm assuming ticket sales are up proportionately. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that because I don't know. But if they are indeed, if it's more than just a perception that they're growing, why in the world would you make a change like this right now? There's zero logic to it. The only logic I can see is, oh, he's in his hometown and his family's here and it's a feel-good moment. And if that's the extent of the thinking, then, you got what you planned for. I just don't think it has any legs. I don't think the audience is buying it. I don't think it's a good setup for another story. I just think it was a bad choice, creative choice, and we can dress it up and talk about it and analyze it and project what we hope is going on behind the scenes. I just think it was a flat-out bad decision.
I'm fascinated by you saying you feel like he should be a part of the cruiserweight division. Of course, we know AEW doesn't have a cruiserweight division, and in fact, WWE abandoned their cruiserweight title back in 2022. Do you think that's missing in modern wrestling? Obviously, we know what a highlight it was of Nitro, and the WWF, specifically Vince McMahon's regime, they never really embraced the cruiserweight or what they at different times referred to as the light heavyweight division. Do you think that is a blind spot in professional wrestling now? Or since you have so many lucha talent on the shows, whether it's AAA and WWE or CMLL in AEW, is that sufficient? Or do you think that there should be a cruiserweight championship or a cruiserweight division specifically?
I think it's a huge opportunity. And I do think WWE is missing the boat by a mile. If you look at the impact that the cruiserweight division in WCW has had on the entire freaking industry now for 27 years, all you have to do is look at what has happened as a result of and since we created the cruiserweight division. If you look at that and you're objective enough to see the impact that had, why would you not create a cruiserweight division to take advantage of so many more of these athletes who came into the business as a result of the success of the cruiserweight division? It opened up way more doors for a lot of these athletes. Well, here, why not take advantage of it and make those athletes feel as special as they are? Their style should be different, can be different, is different. Let's just focus on it, accentuate it, put a spotlight on it, call it the cruiserweight division, and create more opportunities. To me, I don't understand it. Every other combat sport has weight divisions. Why is professional wrestling different? Because nobody's wrapped their head around it. And nobody has been able to wrap their head around it. And it's not math. It's not hard. It's not physics. It's pretty simple. And it worked. So why wouldn't we do it again? For crying out loud, we repeat shit that doesn't work. Why not repeat something that does?
I do want to ask you about the timing of this. We know that they had a pretty awesome pay-per-view, or at least I really enjoyed it on Sunday night, the AEW show, Dynasty. Monday night was the go-home episode of Monday Night Raw. Of course, Tuesday was NXT on a big WrestleMania weekend. And then last night, AEW Dynamite, we see a world title switch. As you and I are recording later tonight, Collision will air. It was actually taped last night. And then Friday night is the go-home episode of SmackDown and the Hall of Fame. And then we roll right into WrestleMania. Do you think it was a good strategy by AEW to capitalize on this week? I know that sometimes we get so far in the bubble in the internet wrestling community that we sort of can't see the forest for the trees, but you do have more folks in the mainstream and more interest in the general population talking about wrestling right now this week than you would any other week of the year. So do you think that it was a good strategy to capitalize on this week? I know that sometimes we get so far in the bubble in the internet wrestling community that we sort of can't see the forest for the trees, but you do have more folks in the mainstream and more interest in the general population talking about wrestling right now this week than you would any other week of the year. It was chess, not checkers, to have an AEW pay-per-view the week before and then do a title switch just to get people talking about AEW in a time when we know that professional wrestling on a larger scale is being discussed much more often this week.
Well, I don't know that professional wrestling on a larger scale is. I know WWE is certainly getting a lot more conversation. I don't think anybody is talking about anything other than WWE for the most part, any differently than they normally would. Do I think that having the pay-per-view this close to WrestleMania is any kind of strategy or chess? No, I really don't. I don't think it was intended to have any kind of impact. I think it was probably, if more than anything else, a scheduling issue, a venue availability. It just coincided. You're not going to skip a pay-per-view, but I don't think the timing was strategic or there's any chess going on there. In terms of the title switch and hoping that it gets more attention because more people are thinking about wrestling, I think that's wishful thinking at best. Delusional is probably more appropriate. And the additional conversation about AEW right now is not the conversation you want taking place on WrestleMania week.
Well, I think you're the guy to ask about these things because I remember back, when you had the WWF on the ropes, we're talking March of 97, you run a fabulous uncensored pay-per-view and you've got Dennis freaking Rodman there. And you actually got more pay-per-view buys for uncensored, which historically in 95 and 96 was one of the worst performing WCW pay-per-views. Uncensored, with the appearance from Dennis Rodman, actually sold more buys than WrestleMania 13 the very same month. So it does feel like you leaned into some controversy, not comparing Dennis Rodman to a title switch, but you saw this as a potential opportunity of, hey, they're going to be talking about WrestleMania. Wait till they get a load of this. Here comes Dennis Rodman.
But that wasn't the thinking, honestly. It's kind of projecting a little bit as to what may be going on in Tony Khan's mind. But for me, that wasn't the thought process at all. The thought process was, we need another pay-per-view. We're going to do it in March. I know we got a WrestleMania. We don't have any choice. We're going to do another pay-per-view. It was more of a revenue decision than it was anything else. And that was it. There was no more strategy behind it than that. It wasn't chess. It was like, shit, we need another pay-per-view. Let's give it a new name. Let's make it feel a little different. Let's try to come up with some ideas that makes it feel distinguishable from the other pay-per-views from a branding perspective and see what happens. That was all there was to it.
You didn't think by loading Dennis Rodman up on pay-per-view on the same month as WrestleMania would have a negative effect on WrestleMania buys?
I don't know that I even thought about that.
Wow.
It just wasn't the calculus because I wasn't competing against WWE. It wasn't, and take some of the shit I may have said as a promoter and as a character on a show, set that aside. From purely a business point of view, I don't even know that I thought about the impact that it would have, if any. In fact, you saying that we sold more buys than WrestleMania, I was shocked to hear you say that just now. I didn't even know. Or if I did, I didn't care. That's how much I thought about positioning uncensored against WrestleMania in the same month. I gave it zero thought. I think if I thought anything, Conrad, I was hoping, shit, I hope this doesn't hurt us. That's it.
Let's talk about the finger poke of doom. Famously, that happens right the same night where there's going to be a title change on the other channel. Is that an example of you trying to create some controversy, hoping that controversy creates cash? Like, that there's another title change on the other channel, so let's counter program with our own controversy. I'm just wondering, I wonder if AEW knew that there would be this debate about whether or not.
I think you're giving them way too much credit, Conrad. You want so badly, people that are supportive of AEW want so badly to find logic in an illogical situation. No, the finger poke of doom had nothing to do with counter programming. At that point, I think I've said this, a couple million times, I wasn't paying attention to WWE that
If you weren't paying attention, why do you have Tony Schiavone tell people what happens on the other channel? If you're not counter
for the same reason that I gave it, look, Conrad, you're trying to compare apples to bricks. We were running head to head. Yes, and there were times because we were head to head, I took advantage of the opportunity to do any number of things from day one, doing any number of things that I could do to not necessarily counter program segment by segment, but to pick a fight with the bully. That's what we did. That's what when we went head to head, when I went live, when I was giving away their finishes, when I started the show 2 minutes before they did, when I started doing the overruns before anybody else had ever thought of it. All those things were designed to give us a competitive edge in a head-to-head environment where we knew we were splitting the audience. But that didn't extend to creative necessarily. Very often is probably more accurate. Occasionally, perhaps, but it wasn't like I was watching WWE so closely that I would counter program them creatively. Certainly in the case of the Finger Poke of Doom, that had nothing to do with what was going on with the other channel. Now, Tony Schiavone, giving away a finish, sure, that was a one-off. That's not something that we did all the time. It was a one-off, and it backfired, spectacularly, by the way. But it wasn't like anybody sat in a room and went, how can we counter program? What do you think Raw's going to do this week? Oh, they've got a title match. Well, maybe we should do this. It's a juvenile way of approaching it. I was focused on our show. I was focused on trying to create the best show that we could. And quite frankly, not to be a dick, but by 1997, they were so far in my rearview mirror, I did not give two shits about what they were doing, which is why I didn't pay attention to it. There was no need to pay attention to it. There was nothing I was going to do that would improve my show based on thinking about what WWE was doing at that time. So I know the tendency is to go, well, you were doing that, so do you think maybe that's what Tony's doing? I think you're giving Tony Khan way too much credit and working too hard to apply logic to a guy that doesn't really have a logical booking approach. He books what he likes to see. That's it. That's the booking strategy.
I love you, Eric. When you make your mind up, you just got your mind made up. It's kind of
well,
fun.
until somebody I can't wait for somebody to change it, but I don't see anything to suggest that that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, something that is going to happen pretty soon is you're all going to try Harry's Plus, and you're going to fall in love with it. You're going to see why Eric and I have decided $30 for 8 refills is a total scam. That's what they're trying to pull down at your corner drugstore. You need to switch to Harry's Plus. They've got an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face, refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave, and a weighted metal handle. In fact, this is actually Harry's heaviest handle ever. With Harry's Plus, you get a barbershop quality shave with these German engineered blades. You see, each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. The blade spacing is optimized to glide smoothly and avoid clogging. Drugstore blades are going to clog so fast. Time to upgrade and get that Harry's Plus. Every cartridge comes with a lubricating strip with aloe and vitamin E to calm your skin while you shave. But maybe the best part about Harry's Plus is how affordable it is. Maybe you didn't know this, but Harry's actually owns their own world-class blade factory over in Germany. So there's no outsourcing. There's no middlemen. The same facility has been perfecting blade making for like over 100 years. And because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they're able to keep costs low. So why go pay $30 for refills when Harry's gives you better blades for a fraction of that? Harry's has launched their most advanced razor ever, and it's still cheaper than Gillette Fusion 5. By the way, if for some reason you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right, no questions asked. A risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving it a shot. You're absolutely going to love it. All of Harry's blades and grooming products can be delivered right to your door. So you just set up your preferred schedule and then you never ever run out of blades again. Right now, for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for over $10 at harrys.com/83weeks. This trial set includes the all new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go, just head on over right now to harrys.com/83weeks to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. So, Eric, I know you're down on the AEW program. If I'm honest with you, I'm kind of surprised you actually even watched it.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched parts of it. I saw a lot of it on social media, but I did not see the whole show. And I'm not criticizing the whole show. I know it, people like, especially that, listen to podcasts and live in the internet wrestling community 24 hours a day, like to frame my responses as being anti Tony Khan or anti.
Hang on. You can't just walk back what you just said. Before I did the Harry's commercial, you said Tony Khan books for himself. He books what he likes. And now the next sentence, I'm not being critical of the whole show. Weren't you just critical of the whole show?
No, I was critical of a booking decision. We were talking specifically about a title change in a match with MJF and Darby. That's what I was talking about. You, I guess, were talking about the entire show, but that's not what I was talking about before the Harry's commercial.
So what did you like on the show last night, Eric?
Haven't seen enough of it to pick anything out. Hey, Conrad, kiss my ass. If you're trying to turn this around and try to not undermine, but dismantle my position on a booking decision between Darby Allin and MJF and turn that around as to, well, you didn't watch the whole show, so you don't have the right to be critical.
I didn't say that.
You asked me about him. Okay, Conrad. Nice.
No, I didn't say that at all.
No,
I said you weren't high on the program, and you said that's not true. So then I asked, okay, well, what did you like?
I said I didn't watch the whole program. Why would you ask me what I liked? I watched that match. I dropped in on a few segments of it. I've seen what I've seen on social media. I didn't see anything that I liked or disliked other than and it's not that I even disliked it. You're asking my opinion of it. My opinion of the Darby Allin MJF match was that it was bad for business. For all the reasons I talked about. That has nothing to do whether I like Tony Khan or I like AEW or I dislike Tony Khan or I dislike AEW. I think that match was a poor booking decision, which is reflective on a lot of matches that we see, I've seen over the years, we've all seen, that make zero sense from a business perspective. From Tony Khan's personal perspective as a sicko, I guess it's cool. And there's a certain segment of the audience that agrees with him. Hoorah! Let's hope there's enough of them to survive on. My personal opinion, in the big scheme of things, Tony's booking decision between MJF and Darby Allin, which was the subject of what we've talked about so far, I thought sucked. It didn't make any sense. There would have been a way to make it make sense, but a 5-minute squash match, 4 coffin drops in the center of the ring, a headlock. There's some creative shit there.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone. I mean, that's why I think we're discussing it now. I mean, Dave Meltzer, as we said, who's maybe been framed as the biggest AEW ally on the internet wrestling community, he was against it. So was Road Dogg, one of the former head writers from WWE. So it's not a surprise that you two are not for it. I think that this is the reason we're talking about it today. And I kind of thought you may actually respect the balls to make a choice like this because it does get people talking. The alternative would have been to just turn in a paint by numbers AEW show that may or may not create any sort of online discussion or discourse and just let WWE own the week because it is WrestleMania week. Or you could take a shot at something and try something crazy. And if it's shitty, you can fix it next week on Dynamite. I just thought, you know what? Eric's probably going to like this because it's controversial and it's got people talking. When normally on WrestleMania week, respectfully, I don't know how many people otherwise would be talking about AEW. So whether we agree or disagree, he made a choice and it's got some chatter. I just thought controversy creates cash. This is up Eric's alley. Maybe not so much.
There's, I run up against opportunities to create controversy even here at Real American Freestyle. And of course, we're a legitimate sport. It's a different scenario. We're not creating fiction here. We're covering a real sport. It's different. But there's still opportunities to do controversial things. And I find myself explaining sometimes that controversy for the sake of controversy, getting people talking is half of the equation. Getting people talking about you or about what you're doing in the way you want them to talk about you is the other half of the equation. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about AEW right now, and none of them have a good taste in their mouth. Is that what you want? That's not what you want. You want the opposite of that. I think for me, no, this is hindsight. Everybody can be a genius, after the fact. But if they felt, to your point, that this might be a good opportunity to launch another story, having wrestled twice already, there's a way to do that. I've talked about this before. 3-act structure. Your opening act is your opening and your closing act are the two most important. How does it start? How does it end? Yes, you got to have meat in the middle to keep everybody excited and take them on an emotional roller coaster. But I can give you some other examples when we start talking about WWE, because they've done the same thing, essentially. But if you start out poorly, if your first foray into Act 1 has the audience kind of confused, disappointed, or in this case, MJF and Darby, pissed off, the chances of that being a good story in the end, it's almost nil. And they started this story off, if indeed it's a story and not just a hotshot because, hey, we're in his hometown. Let's be good to Darby because we love Darby. Yay. His family's in the front row. Make sure we get him on camera because it's a feel-good moment. I get all that. I'm making it sound like I'm dismissing it. Those are valuable devices and can be used effectively. But here, now, that match, really, really poor choice for the opening act. Now, had they shot an angle, had we started that story with something hot that would build anticipation and make us want to see Darby and MJF continuing that new story, I'd have been all about it. But a 5-minute squash match with your World Heavyweight Champion who just battled Kenny Omega, which I didn't see that either. I was flying, but evidently a lot of people loved it. And why would you go from that to a 5-minute squash match with a guy that weighs about 145 pounds? Cool makeup, does some crazy shit, likes to throw himself through glass. Yay. But that match just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't get it from a business perspective. Aesthetically, people may have watched it and go, wow, that's really cool. I love watching Darby do that crazy shit. Hats off to you. 10 out of 10. Crazy shit. But storytelling-wise, business-wise, creatively, for me, it's a big miss.
I want to get your take on something else that we've seen AEW do. I saw this on social, and I actually tagged you when I quote tweeted it. I don't know if you saw it, but I suggested when fans started snapping pictures of the baggage claims in Las Vegas, where you could see the advertising for AEW Dynamite, I thought, boy, this feels like a page out of Eazy-E's book to go ahead. There's going to be a captive wrestling audience. And, the WWE is a heritage brand. Everybody is familiar with WWE, but all AEW fans know about WWE, but I don't think the inverse of that is true. There's so many fans who are coming in for WrestleMania who maybe don't even know that AEW exists. I kind of like this idea of, hey, let's advertise where we know wrestling fans are going to be. I know Tony Khan long ago made a decision. We're not going to run AEW shows and piggyback WrestleMania like every other promotion in the world does. But getting your messaging out there where those wrestling fans are, that's about as captive of an audience as you can get, don't you think?
Definitely. And I think the other thing that happens, and this is, it's hard to put a dollar value on it, right? It doesn't necessarily make sense financially, but it's just one of those things that you could do that helps create the energy. And I know that sounds weird. Why would billboards in an airport create energy for an event that's coming in a couple of days? It's because it sets a tone. If you're talent, if you're on the AEW roster and you've flown across country and you're landing at the airport and you're going down to baggage claim, which is the worst part of traveling, is waiting for your bags, for me anyway. But you come down there and you see the companies promoting you and promoting your event. It kind of changes the way you feel about baggage claim, right? And it changes your energy as a performer or as a crew member to know that the company really is behind this event. It makes it feel important. Therefore, you feel important as an individual who's part of the team. And for that reason alone, I think it's a great idea. Do I think that people that were flying into Vegas for a weekend of whatever Vegas fun saw that AEW billboards and all the advertisement went, you know what? We were going to go see a show, but I'm going to go watch AEW instead. I think there may be a couple people that perhaps. I think most of the AEW fans that flew into Vegas were flying in for the event. And even for those people who had already made the decision to part with a significant amount of cash between your airfare, your hotels, and a ticket to the event, it's a kind of an investment, right? But even those people will have a heightened sense of, I don't know if it'll make them enjoy the show, but it will make them believe they're getting value for their money. And that's just as important.
Well, what else is important, especially WrestleMania week, is getting people interested. And boy, are they interested in the main event on Sunday, Roman and CM Punk. Yes, we're going to talk about Cody and Pat McAfee and all that entails. Stay tuned for that. But Eric, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, I'm going to play for you a promo that was posted on Roman Reigns' social media today that I think is the tone and tenor that is exactly what wrestling and specifically this WrestleMania needs. I can't wait for you to see it and get your reaction. But first, I want to tell you about a reaction you're going to want in time for Mother's Day, thanks to my friend, Steven Singer. I hate Steven Singer, but you know what I love? Moms. Think about it. Before morning coffee and chaos, before the day even starts, there's mom. The one who wakes up at sunrise, packs the lunches, drives carpools, and somehow keeps everything together. She's the sunrise of the family. That's why Steven Singer created something special this Mother's Day. His brand new Sunrise 24 karat gold dipped rose. This exclusive rose captures the colors of the morning sunrise with sparkling blue that fades to a pinkish purple to a warm golden yellow. It's stunning. Steven's gold dipped roses are a real rose, dipped and preserved in real gold, guaranteed to last a lifetime, just like a mother's love. They arrive in a beautiful gift box. They're shipped for free with your own personalized message. Steven's new Sunrise Rose is just $89, exclusively and only available at IHateStevenSinger.com. Celebrate the moms who make every sunrise possible. Steven Singer Jewelers. That's IHateStevenSinger.com.
Your face. I don't understand what this place looks like sometimes, but I know my instincts, and I know pro wrestling, and I know what it looks like when there's a fighting champion, there's somebody who cares and believes, and that's what you're gonna get when CM Punk wins at WrestleMania. That's what it's all about.
Defended the title 3 times. You've had it, the whole year. You're not a fighting champion. You're not even a fighter. We've seen how that went. Coddled by management because I'm money, and they've known that since the beginning. I told them I'm an unsigned $1 billion check. Go back and find it. It's in the archives. You don't have that type of confidence because you're not the type of man I am. You're not cut from the same fabric as me. It blows my mind that you think we're fucking equals. And which way? It's only going to take the first couple of minutes for the whole world to see. There's no way we could ever be on the same level. Coddled. The whole industry coddles you just by having you in it. You talk about the old timers, those were tough guys. We've seen what happens when you try to be a tough guy. We put our whole reputation, the whole art form on the line for you because what? 100,000 internet marks love you from the beginning? Let's go back to your journey days when you were on the indies. It was the shits. An embarrassment. There's not a legend in my family that respects you. You're the reason we don't let marks in the business. Keep my fucking name out your mouth. On Sunday, it ends for you.
How about that promo right there, Mr. Bischoff?
The only thing I didn't like, when he said, keep my name out your fucking mouth, the Will Smith line just kind of took the edge off of it for me. Now, I know it's Roman's authentic voice. It's a coincidence. I don't think he was trying to lift that line from the Will Smith incident. I don't want to suggest that. It was just coincidence, but it came off like that, and it just made me go, ooh, not that. But look, I thought it was such a cool way. I mean, how many times have we talked on this show about how to use social media effectively? Mm-hmm. Boy, did they knock this one out of the park. You know, it was authentic. It felt. Here's what I'm having a hard time articulating this. One of the hardest things as a producer now, when you're trying to capture that fly on the wall kind of, camera, the talent doesn't really know the camera's there. That's really hard to explain away to an audience, right? But acknowledging meaning clearly there's somebody riding along with Roman that wanted to get his thoughts on this promo that Punk put out, right? So it's easily digestible, meaning as a viewer, you go, oh, well, of course, that makes sense. We see that all the time in social media. People do it all the time, record themselves while they're driving, or somebody's recording them while they're driving, or while they're a passenger. We see that all the time. So now we can accept that, well, that's a candid moment. We've been conditioned to accept a shot like that as a candid shot. That's important because now it's believable. If it could be true, it's more likely to be believable. And this could be true because we're conditioned to accept it as a candid moment. I know I keep harping on that, but it's really, really important because once you buy into the moment, meaning you believe it, this could be Roman. He could be sharing this isn't the TV Roman. This is the real Roman. That's what you just knocked it out of the park.
Yes.
You just knocked it out of the park. If you can get to that psychological threshold where you've convinced the audience subconsciously that what they're watching is real. That other stuff we see Roman do, that's on TV. This is the guy. And he's sharing it with me. That is such a home run. That is such an effective way of using social media. And it all starts with, it's believable. It could be true. We're not sure. How much of that interview was a shoot? 10%? 80%? You'll know when you watch, when you tune into the match, when you watch WrestleMania, when you see them in the ring together, you'll have an idea. But that interview, that whatever that was, that scene, if you will, social media bite, made that match way more interesting than anything they could have done on television, realistically. Because it's different. It just hit different. It made you believe. And so much of what we see on TV, as great as it is, you're watching it with your guard up, right? You're not dropping your hands and leaning into the story because it's really not that. It's entertaining. You got me. But do I believe it? Do I think there's real emotion there? Do I think there is an opportunity for disaster to happen? Meaning this shit gets out of control? Yeah, I do. I think there's a chance. Because I'm not 100% sure that promo wasn't 90% shoot. Or 60%. There's some truth to it. So the fact that there's some truth in there somewhere on both their parts, I find it, that's the part of wrestling that I get sucked into. The belief, when you can do something that makes me not sure. 35 years in the business. produced a couple TV shows, kind of get the program, right? I understand it pretty well. And as I sit here talking to you right now, I don't know how much of that promo was intended or how much of it is real. That's the magic. And look, we've seen it before. It's not like this is the first time it's ever happened, but when it's done well, it's magic. Flair and I did it pretty well because it was all real for Rick. Rick was just professional enough to make it work from a business point of view, but there was nothing that came out of Rick's mouth when he was cutting promos on me that he didn't believe 100%, and the audience knew it. That's the magic. That's what made them do this. And there's been many others, but just one I had firsthand experience in. I love it. I think it's great.
Jeff Jarrett has said for years that he feels like wrestling today is by and large following your old Nitro formula, and the format really hasn't changed. And he said that wrestling desperately needs a change. I think wrestling should be more like that. Not high production. It felt very real. Like what Roman is doing there felt like what I guess the kids would call IRL, in real life streaming. Because that's what, you know, all of these guys that are getting invited for 6-man tags at WrestleMania, that's the reason they're there. They're courting all this attention because it feels real and there is some sort of a connection. And I think that's what we like. We wondered right there, is that the Roman Reigns character or is that Joe? And I'm curious, do you agree with Jeff that the format, wrestling desperately needs a format change? By and large, they're just following the old Nitro formula to this day?
It depends what Jeff meant by format change. I think in the larger sense, when I think of format, I don't think the format needs to change necessarily. And there's not a lot of room to change the format because of the way at least SmackDown is structured with commercial breaks. But Raw's a little different, obviously. But from my perspective, it's not that it needs a format change, but the elements within that format. We talked about on this show, backstage interviews. They're just flat out horrible. They're never good. They never really advance a story. All they do is remind the audience of something you want to remind them of and stay, you know, in the front of their minds necessarily. But they suck. The performances are generally piss poor at best. And these are talented people. I'm not criticizing the talent. It's just the nature of that stand-up interview is just so old and tired, and nobody watches it. Nobody does things like that anymore, right? You don't see those except for in wrestling sometimes. So there are elements within the format absolutely need to change. And I'll give you an example of what I'm doing. So it's not just me talking shit, right? And I'm not selling real American Freestyle here. If you watch a show, you watch a show, and you'll know what I'm talking about. I just got off the phone 10 minutes before I jumped on this podcast with David Sahadi, who's producing some of our segments for the show. And I wanted these 30, 45 seconds, maybe up to a minute, essentially sound bites on camera, you know, shots with talent as they're prepping. And I said, shoot them on your phone. Do not use a camera. Shoot them on your phone. Now, some of them we will, some of them we won't, depending on what the purpose of the bumper, as I refer to them, happens to be. But even my production team here at Real American Freestyle, I'm challenging them to look for ways to produce things that don't feel expected. We expect to see in a typical, you know, combat sports format, you know, we know what to expect when it comes to interviews. Well, I want to do something different than that, including shooting them on the phone. And the purpose for that is people now are, they're going to their phones for everything. And it opens the door up to, again, as Roman did, to do things outside the arena, outside the venue, to keep the story going, right? There are so many of those opportunities. We see them so often that by including some of that in the show, it gives it more, what am I trying to say? A sense of urgency and reality just because you're shooting it on a different format. Format also refers to the type of cameras you use and things like that. So I agree with Jeff, depending on his definition of format. Are you going to structure, is it going to become a half talk show, half wrestling? That we know that won't work, right? Are we going to take all the connective tissue, meaning what is currently backstage segments and interviews and in-rings? I know people bitch about in-rings because oftentimes they're just kind of placeholders too. They're just there because they need to be there. They're not necessarily great moments in television, but you need them to keep the narrative going, to keep the story flowing, right? They're necessary. But if you can find a different way to do that within the format, I think that's worth exploring.
We want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you want more promos like what we saw in the back of a car from Roman Reigns? Does wrestling as a whole need a format change? Hey, why not? Chime in. What do you think of Darby Allin winning the AEW title? Let us know in the comments below. We're going to be running some polls as well. Participate. We want your feedback. Let us know what you're thinking. Go hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notifications bell at 83weeks.com. Here's what I know you're going to be thinking. Why didn't I get these chubbies before? Chubbies is a game changer, especially this time of year. I got to tell you, I look forward to not wearing regular pants anytime soon. The original stretch short is maybe the most comfortable thing you've ever worn. You've got an elastic waistband. You've got 3 different lengths. And spring being here, you know what time it is. It's time to let those thighs breathe. Whether you're playing around to golf with the fellas, maybe you're going to hit up a beer garden, or maybe you're actually going to work in a real garden in your backyard. Chubbies has you covered for all the good vibes that the warm weather brings. They've got bright polos that demand attention. Check. They've got killer shorts that show off those beautiful thighs. Double check. And the original short provides that classic look with a fresh vibe and a modern fit. Chubbies are designed for comfort, but they're built for stretch, and they're designed to give you that thigh-high confidence. Whether you're hitting up the pool or the beach, the classic line swim collection has your favorite new trunks for those sunny days. We're talking seriously soft, but dangerously flexible, but maybe best of all, incredibly quick drying swim trunks. At the end of the day, your wardrobe deserves a springtime upgrade. So to sweeten the deal, for a limited time, Chubbies is giving our listeners 20% off your entire order with our exclusive code. Just use that code 83weeks at chubbyshorts.com. For unmatched comfort and style, you got to experience Chubby's iconic original stretch shorts. You heard me bragging about the different lengths. Well, they got 4 inches, they got 5.5 inches, and they got 7-inch inseams. So no matter what you're comfortable with, Chubby's has you covered. I want you to check it out. I'm telling you, my dad is rocking it like it's his uniform. He's basically their biggest paid spokesperson at this time. Whether you're getting dressed for your work day or a workout or a weekend getaway, Chubby's has you covered. And right now, for a limited time, Chubby's is giving our viewers 20% off your order with our code 83weeks at chubbyshorts.com. That's code 83weeks at chubbyshorts.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Don't blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubbies.
It's time for the Wrestling News Update with Raj Giri.
All right, let's welcome him in. Raj Giri, welcome to 83 Weeks. Man, we just saw a big announcement. Forbidden Door has a weekend, and I was surprised when I looked at the calendar. AEW Forbidden Door and TNA Slammiversary, those are 2 monster shows. Are they head-to-head right now, Raj?
Yeah, as of right now, they are head-to-head. Forbidden Door is taking place at the SAP Center on Sunday, June 28th, and Slammiversary will also be taking place that day at the Agnes Arena in Boston. So TNA had announced the date last week. Forbidden Door obviously was announced this week. Whether or not the same day is a coincidence, I mean, that's hard to know for sure. You know, there has been some bad blood back and forth between TNA and AEW. TNA obviously pulling some wrestlers from this weekend's, some indie events from this weekend that were scheduled to face AEW talent. And there were some rumors that Carlos Silva didn't like Tony Khan putting Collision up against, putting Collision up against Impact. And so you would think that for AEW to act that quickly to put their event against Slammiversary, you would think it would take more time. And so it definitely could be a coincidence, but that's not to say it definitely is. I mean, Forbidden Door usually does take place that weekend. Slammiversary is usually a few weeks earlier. So it could be a coincidence, but then again, you never know. I mean, Tony Khan did announce the signing of the Rascals, who are one of Impact's most popular acts. The night before Impact debuted on AMC, he seemingly hired the Inspiration just because they were TNA Tag Team Champions. So whether or not he would do this on purpose remains to be seen. But as of right now, they are head-to-head.
Eric, you've told us before that buildings are often booked months in advance, and that was even a particular challenge when you guys first started rolling with Real American Freestyle. I would think this probably leans more in the coincidence column. What would you say?
If I had to bet money, I would bet it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
As opposed to a tactic. For that reason alone. I mean, I know for us, still we're finishing up getting the rest of the year booked, but it's tough because there's always something going on. And a lot of these venues, you look at, and I don't know what AEW's, production requirements are, or the writer in terms of what they need in that venue, but just the staging and the lighting grid and all the things you absolutely have to produce a television show, particularly when it comes to the lighting grid. There's a lot of really cool venues that just can't hold the show.
Right.
Even with Real American Freestyle, there's a lot of venues we'd love to play, but we just can't. The building doesn't have the infrastructure for it. That makes the available buildings for a company like AEW or TNA or whomever, WWE, it really narrows the scope. And there's a lot of people booking those buildings. There's always something going on in those markets. So it's tough. And because of that, I would say it's coincidence.
I do want to ask, Eric, when you're taking a look at, going head to head like this on a pay-per-view, I know that's something that you always tried to avoid in WCW, but I think if I remember right, those decisions were kind of made for you by the pay-per-view providers where they didn't want you to overlap and kind of cannibalize each other. Do I have that wrong, or when do you remember that?
No, you're 100% right. Now, again, the world was different then. The pay-per-view revenue model was way different then than it is now. But back then, your pay-per-view providers didn't want to split the audience. They didn't want to miss out. They would rather have 100% of a WWE audience and 100% of a WCW audience than see the two go head-to-head and split the audience. So they were a big factor. Is that a factor in today's world? I don't know. I'm not in the pay-per-view business anymore. I'm in the streaming business. But I would imagine it's not as big of a deal right now as it used to be.
Raj, I want to ask you, is there any way to know what, if any, sort of overlap exists between an AEW pay-per-view customer and a TNA pay-per-view customer? Is there any data out there like that?
Not really. I mean, you did have Collision and Impact go head-to-head a couple of weeks ago. And when that happened, you saw the Impact audience down by like 22% from the week before. It was one of the lowest audiences they've had, since their third week. But their 18 to 49 number was still strong. It was still tied with the best that they've been doing, which is tied with several other episodes. So it took a little bit of a hit, but you've just got to think, the AEW pay-per-view numbers have got to be a lot bigger than TNA. It probably is in their best interest to move it if they can, whether it's just to the night before, move it to Saturday, or pick another weekend. But, I just wonder, and I guess that's a great question for Eric. Should TNA move the night for business purposes, even though it's kind of getting a little egg on their face? It's kind of making them look like they're backing down, even though AEW has done the same. Anytime WWE now has a big PLE, they'll move Collision from that Saturday to, usually like a Thursday.
I mean, even last year, the big AEW pay-per-view, their big stadium show, All In, was supposed to be an evening show, but they scheduled Saturday night's main event and Goldberg's last match that night. So AEW moved to be a matinee show. And as somebody who went to the show, I enjoy matinee shows more. Like, I'm old. It's hard to stay up on a Sunday night until, past midnight watching wrestling. It's much easier to just block off a Sunday afternoon. Eric, if you were TNA, would you acquiesce the evening to AEW and make your show a matinee show?
Or move it.
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage, again, TNA is in a very fragile position right now. You know, they're kind of an emerging, they're not a startup. I mean, they've been around for a long time, but they might as well be a startup, and they just can't afford a big hit right now. I'd rather, you know, take the PR hit amongst the internet wrestling community fan base, which isn't going to matter because they're going to watch anyway. You know, they'll continue watching to the extent that they were before. It's not like if Carlos makes this move, people are going to abandon, you know, or stop watching TNA. They won't. Yes, it's a little embarrassing. Yeah, you're taking you're giving AEW the dominant nod there and position, but it's okay. Better that than forget about the money that you're probably going to lose. It's just it's a kick in the balls to the talent, right? Kick in the teeth, let's say. There's females on the card. But it's a kick in the teeth, but you get over it quick. I would move it.
Raj, let's talk a little bit about the TV ratings. I know that we've been discussing ratings for quite a bit. I don't think anybody has benefited from this more than Impact. Chat me up a little bit about what you're seeing with NXT and Dynamite and specifically TNA rating.
Well, it was a weird one last week where TNA Impact last week was number one in the demo, not the demo, but the males 12 to 17 and teens to 12 to 17. It was number one for the night on cable in prime time last week. That's the first time that TNA has been number one in the demo on cable. Probably, I mean, at least since the Spike TV days, if not ever. Granted, it's not the 18 to 49 demo, but in the teens demo and especially with males, it beat both NXT and Dynamite. It beat Dynamite among male teens by 300%, and among all teens, 12 to 17 by 60%. And it beat NXT with male teens by 129%, and all teens 12 to 17 by 100%. That's, again, if you're just looking at the Nielsen ratings, this obviously doesn't account for Max or, you know, any streaming or anything like that. But just off of the Nielsen numbers, and obviously Nielsen numbers have been all over the place over the past year. They haven't shown, I mean, I've always taken them with a grain of salt, but especially in the last year, they've kind of shown why. But if you go by the Nielsen numbers, it beat both those shows handily in those demos.
Why do you think that is?
Well, one thing with NXT is that they didn't get the bump when Nielsen changed their methodology in late January. That was mostly for cable networks, so NXT didn't get that bump. Their numbers mostly stayed the same. And even though NXT is on broadcast, I do believe because of how Nielsen has tweaked their methodology, even with the same amount of viewers, if they were on USA with the same amount of viewers, their ratings would probably be higher than what they are on CW right now. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks ago with Collision. When Nielsen changed their methodology, they jumped up 250% in the demo in 1 week. It just benefited cable shows greatly. NXT hasn't had that bump. Dynamite, you could argue because it's such a younger demo that more of those viewers are probably watching on Max. But as far as just the TV numbers, you know, again, does it make sense? I mean, I don't know if that passes this, you know, the sniff test that is beating those shows by that much, but I think that's, again, more of a Nielsen issue. But Impact has shown that it is more popular among younger viewers than it is with older ones.
Eric, what's your takeaway from that? The TNA viewer skewing younger than the other programs.
Hard to explain. Don't know that I've got a good feel for that. I think sometimes your distribution has an impact. The distribution, meaning, you know, the type of the network that it's on and the type of audience that network typically attracts in a market. Those are all different. So it could just be because their distribution is different types of a younger audience watching in general. So it's reflected in TNA's numbers. It could be because of the way they produce the product and the way it's presented. Hard to say.
Eric, well, I know once upon a time, you know, the WWF during the golden era, their bread and butter was kids. And I know that WCW at different times tried to lean into that to expand licensing to action figures and things like that. we know now, action figures have become more collectibles for adults. But I'm curious, do you think there is perhaps a hole in the market with AEW certainly skewing older, really young men? And WWE historically has been, over the last 10 or 15 years, an older viewer, average age around that 50-year mark. Is there an opportunity for someone, TNA or someone, to cater to kids?
Maybe, but I wouldn't put a lot of calories behind that strategy, just because there doesn't seem to be a focus on youth programming anyway, outside of Cartoon Network and some of the streaming platforms that my grandson watches. It seems like programmers, advertisers, networks that are focused on kids are doing so outside of cable and network. So for that reason, I just don't think that it's a viable strategy long term. I think you can skew. I mean, look, we talk about the WWE viewer being average, 50 plus. There's still a significant number of teens and preteens in that demo.
Sure.
Not like it used to be. The teen and preteen audience for WWE now, we're going back to the 80s, early 90s, was predominantly, I believe, teen and preteen. That was their goal. That was their targeting. And if you remember, back then there were a lot of networks, Fox Kids Channel. Fox Network had its own network dedicated towards creating and distributing kids programming on Saturday mornings. It's one of the first shows I ever sold was to Fox Kids Network. Molly Miles was the president of the division at the time, went on to work at Universal. But that doesn't exist anymore. But you can still, if you're TNA or if you're WWE or if you're AEW, you can make a decision strategically to go, you know what, we need to shore up our teen and preteen audience because it's an underserved market. If you're correct, Conrad, and I think you might be, we've identified an underserved market or category in our demo, let's beef that up by doing some things within our program specifically for that part of the audience. Sure you can, but I don't think a purely teen and preteen strategy would be effective anymore.
Let's talk a little bit about WrestleMania. There's been a lot of discussion as we head into this year's WrestleMania, Raj, that ticket sales are not where WWE expected. Where are ticket sales now, and what do you expect the final numbers to be?
Well, so first off, at the beginning of the month, they had about 38,000 sold for night one and 40,000 sold for night two. And here we are a couple weeks later. Pat McAfee on SmackDown this past Friday, he gave a discount code just for night one, not for night two. And that did seem to work a little bit. Night one had 2,000 extra tickets sold as opposed to 600 for night two. So where we're at right now, WrestleMania, as of yesterday, via WrestleTix, they're at 42,715 for night one and 43,394 for night two. Now, there was a report by the Sports Business Journal saying that WWE said ticket sales have surged in recent weeks and projected that the event remains headed towards one of the top dates in WWE history. Now, as far as the surge in ticket sales, it's been an increase, but since the beginning of the month, we're talking 11% up for night one, 9% up for night two. So I don't think I'd call that a surge, but they are up. As far as it being one of the top gates in WWE history, I think it goes without saying it will be one of the top, but it won't be the top. Last year, the top was 66 million, which insane over the two nights. The year before, it was 39 million. So I could see it beating that 39 million. It probably will. So that would make it the second biggest WrestleMania gate of all time behind last year.
When you say gate, are you talking about bodies or dollars?
Dollars. This is just specifically dollars.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a ways away from the most attended. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about ticket prices. I know I'm in the minority, but I don't think that was it necessarily on this one. I mean, respectfully, Pat McAfee, as a heel, cutting a promo in the ring, offering a discount for tickets was a little crazy to me, but also too little too late. Like 25% off of a $150 ticket is not going to make or break my decision to travel to Las Vegas. You know, you just put the math to that. And what are we talking about? $40? Like, oh man, it's just too expensive to go to WrestleMania. It's just too expensive to go to Las Vegas. Oh, well, if you're cutting $40 off, turn the car around. We're headed that way. Like, that's not a real motivator. I think if anything, there may have been some burnout to going back to the exact same town. And I mean, let's be real. Nobody left night 2 last year really thrilled with the way that main event went down with John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and Travis Scott. And I almost wonder how much of this has fooled me twice. When it's all said and done, Eric, will the story of this show, will the teachable moment, will the lesson that we learn here be that this will probably be the last time we see back-to-back WrestleManias in the same host city?
Maybe, maybe not. We may see WrestleMania back there again soon. Look, the other part of the other variable that was just left out of the equation, which I think is kind of important, is that Vegas as a destination is getting crushed. Their business is down. If you just, what was it, 2-3 days ago, I was reading a story about hotels around Vegas. And I'm not talking about WrestleMania weekend. I'm just talking year round, are offering, crazy incentive packages and reducing prices, trying to get people to come back to Vegas. I think as much as we want to blame last year's finish or ticket prices or bad booking by Paul Levesque, whatever, that's the easy go-to kind of, let's talk about those things. But I think you've also got to look at the city and the state of the economy and the fact that the entire city, every show in Vegas is having a hard time. Not every show, I shouldn't say that. Most shows in Vegas are having a hard time selling tickets because not as many people are going to Vegas as a destination. You think about it. Here's what I was thinking about while I was listening to Raj. It's like, how many wrestling fans live within 200 miles of Vegas? Well, you probably, of all the wrestling fans that live within 200-mile drive of Vegas, realistically, you probably have 100% of those people who are interested in going to WrestleMania. Now, maybe there's some local stragglers who aren't flying in, who aren't driving in, who happen to live in the market that haven't been able to buy a ticket. Will that $40 off make a difference to them? It might. There might be enough of those people to go, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go. It's an incentive. It's not going to be a life-changing incentive. They're not going to be able to, make a double house payment because of the money they saved on a WrestleMania ticket, but it's an incentive. And I think it's targeted towards the local market because, to your point, Conrad, I know you were kind of making a joke in a way, but anybody that was willing to fly into Vegas save $40. I don't think that's the issue. I think they're trying to make sure they squeezed all of the juice out of the local lemon.
I hope they do. I hope it continues to be hugely successful for everybody. I mean, if WrestleMania and WWE is successful, it's good for the entire industry. So I know tribalism sometimes overtakes us, but the entire industry should hope that this is another record year. Raj, I want to put you on the spot. I want you to give us your prediction for the main events of night 1 and night 2. Is it going to be Cody or Randy? And on night 2, will it be Punk or Roman?
I'm going to go Randy with night 1. And I'm going to go Roman with night 2. I think they need to mix stuff up on Raw a little bit. So I'm going to go with Roman.
Well, there we go. Raj, tell everybody where we can keep up with you week in, week out.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at the Raj Giri, and I'll be tweeting along during WrestleMania this weekend. I had missed it last year due to a wedding, but I'm pumped to be. I'm excited for it coming up this weekend. So just follow me on there, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks again.
No, thank you, man. Of course, it's going to be a big WrestleMania weekend for all of us on the 18th and 19th. And what about Monday? It's 420. It's time for Into Cloud. Half the internet's talking about spring cleaning. The other half already planning this Monday, 420. With 420 coming up, a lot of people are thinking exactly that. That's where Into Cloud fits in. IndaCloud is your fully legal online cannabis dispensary for gummies, exotic flower, premium pre-rolls, and zero sugar THC sodas. It's a clean, alcohol-free way to relax without throwing off tomorrow. Everything is available, and it's all federally legal hemp THC. It's been lab tested, and it's getting shipped directly and discreetly to your door. And this month, new customers can get 40% off all month long. It's their biggest sale of the year. You're absolutely going to love it. They've got gummies for stress relief and balance. They've got THC sodas for a smooth social lift. They've got premium pre-rolls for ending the day intentionally, and $70 ounces because value should not fluctuate. Go check it out right now. If you're 21 or older and a new customer, go right now to indacloud.co. That's indacloud.co, not .com, and use the promo code 83weeks. You'll get 40% off your first order. That's indacloud.co. The promo code is 83weeks, and you'll get 40% off all month long, shipped discreetly to your door, plus free shipping on orders over $50 and $30 in free gifts on qualifying orders. Guys, don't forget to fill out the quick survey when you order to help support this show. One more time, indacloud.co, and the promo code is 83weeks. So, Eric, we know that WrestleMania this year is in Las Vegas, but there's been lots of speculation about, hey, where is WrestleMania going to be next year? Of course, originally, New Orleans was going to be the host site this year, and they pivoted and said, no, we're going back to Vegas. So New Orleans gets the Money in the Bank this September. But next year, is it going to be in Saudi Arabia? Well, we have our answer. Nick Khan has suggested that, yes, WrestleMania 43 is still going to happen in Saudi Arabia. There's been lots of rumors lately that the event could be called off or rescheduled because of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. But Nick Khan says, nay, the show will go on. He added that the criticism surrounding Saudi PLEs largely comes from what he described as a vocal minority, emphasizing that WWE's decisions are driven by ratings, revenue, and overall relevance. This all comes from an interview he did with the Sporting Tribune. But I love this quote, Eric. I have never read X or Twitter as it relates to our business, and I've certainly never read it regarding me. That is a vocal minority. Boy, feels like you and him are singing from the same sheet music today, huh?
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
It's not like we have unique personality traits that just happen to be parallel. It is a fact. And, you know, it's hard to remember that from time to time. Even to this day, I'll see something that, you know, I give much more attention to than I really should, because it's just, there's small voices in a little bubble that really don't matter in the big scheme of things.
Let's talk about something else that everybody's talking about. Pat McAfee. Of course, you have really made a name for yourself in WCW with the great use of outside celebrity. We already referenced at the top of the show the Dennis Rodman piece, but you really did a really great job with that. That was ahead of its time, and I think paved the way for WWE to do something with Mike Tyson. But this is a horse of a different color this year with Pat McAfee. It seems like no one, and I mean no one, is in favor of this. So they're going to turn it into a storyline, or so it seems. Cody Rhodes and CM Punk have been doing lots of mainstream media, pulling no punches, and really going about it in maybe the most interesting way of all to sell WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes being quoted as saying this is the worst angle in the history of wrestling while he's doing mainstream media. He said, so outside forces, you could look at this year and say, hey, here's Pat McAfee. You could look at the year before and say, here's Travis Scott. You could look at the year before and say, here's The Rock. But if you're a Cody Rhodes fan during WrestleMania season, it's a choice. We deal with outside forces. We deal with, hey, they want to be a part. We're about it. And I can say this, it's a spot I always wanted. If you're going to be in the big moments, you have to be ready for the big jobs. Pat being a part of ESPN and the fact that WWE WrestleMania is on ESPN for the first time ever is actually a natural fit. Does it fit in a 20-year student, wrestler, teacher, mentor, all of that? No, but Pat sure does think it does. And now Pat has the title, so we can tell that story another time. That story's also already been told. Let's figure out how this one unfolds. He says all this on the Rich Eisen show, and then Punk goes out of his way on the All the Smoke Pod to touch on Pat McAfee, who has nothing to do in theory with his show. Of course, Pat McAfee is focused on Saturday, not Sunday, where Roman and Punk will be wrestling, but Punk felt the need to come out and do a work shoot promo, if you will, on Pat McAfee, and well, Pat responded. So now Punk is doing the media saying, wrestling has always, I think, sometimes to a fault, embraced people that we believe can get eyeballs on our product. Eyeballs on our product and people actually investing and buying tickets are two wildly different things. I think Pat was a wrestling fan who became famous outside the bubble and was afforded an opportunity to be invited in. And somewhere along the line, he forgot that he's a tourist. And to me, the invite can be easily rescinded. Pat's great at what he does, but Pat is not great at what we do. And when he disrespects the business and he says things out of pocket, he's going to get checked, and he's going to get checked by me. You can't be running your mouth about ticket sales and all this other stuff when you've never sold a ticket in your life. I don't know, man. It's got everybody talking. It feels like this is an Eric Bischoff dream period of fandom where we are blurring the lines a little bit, and we've got some shoot promos, and we're wondering what's real and what's not. But this is perhaps the most head-scratching way I've ever seen a WrestleMania be sold, Eric.
Definitely. I mean, again, I don't want to always bring everything back to NWO and WCW, or me even for that matter, but the parallels are kind of hard to miss here. WWE is walking right up to a very, very fine line. It's high risk. What they're doing with Pat McAfee is strategic. It's tactical. It's tactical, meaning it's a series of moves specifically to promote WrestleMania and ticket sales. This is not a broader long-term strategy. This is a tactic for one event. And I think what they're doing, because of ESPN, because this is the first time WWE is going to be on ESPN, exactly what Cody said, they're doing everything they can to ensure that it's going to elevate the business. And by including Pat, who is an ESPN guy, by including Pat in this story, you're going to get some crossover. You're going to get some new audience that typically is, watches Pat on ESPN that haven't really checked out wrestling. They're hoping that they can bring some of that ESPN audience, new audience, over to WrestleMania. I'm sure it's going to work. To what extent, I don't know. But the way they're going about it is really, really risky, because a week from today, you and I are either going to be talking about how brilliant this marketing strategy was and how well this story actually played out, because it didn't start out good. Going back to what I talked about with a bad first act when we were talking about MJF and Darby. Just like the Cody Rhodes, story last year had a stutter step with Travis and The Rock. And now this is a little bit of a stutter step. It's, injecting Pat McAfee. It doesn't make any sense on paper. There's zero connective tissue there. There's zero backstory. They might as well have dropped them out of a helicopter and landed them in the middle of the ring in a main event. It makes no sense. However, it could work. And if it works, they're going to look brilliant. If it doesn't, they're going to piss some people off, and they're going to be living with this for a while. But I like the risk. I don't know that I would take it. Doesn't mean it's not a good risk to take, but it's going to be interesting as hell, because it doesn't make any sense. But I'm not so sure that it matters, because it doesn't need to make sense. If they can make enough noise over on ESPN to get some crossover to increase the WrestleMania performance, it was worth it.
I think it's going to come together in the end. Call me a delusional optimist, but I think people are going to be really, really happy with what they see this weekend. I think sometimes the key to life is managing expectations. And I think people have decided that this WrestleMania sucks, but when you actually look at the card, it might be one of the stronger cards in recent memory. As far as in-ring matches go, this may be one of the best of all time. And I think people have decided they hate the story so much that they're going to be pleasantly surprised. I have no inside information. I don't know what's coming, but I do know that Pat McAfee is now saying that Roman Reigns is also going to save the business. Quote, Once he saves the business and becomes the 15-time world champion on Saturday night, Roman Reigns on Sunday is going to hammer home the point. There's going to be 2 nails in the coffin of bad business. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Guess what's back? Wrestling. Now, allegedly, the April, or I guess the Backlash, as we're going to call it now, the Backlash pay-per-view main event is going to be, and again, this is the report. We don't know if this is true or not, but allegedly, it's going to be Randy Orton teaming with Pat McAfee to take on Cody Rhodes and Jelly Roll. Now, if you're thinking about stuff that's going to get outside attention and sell some tickets and keep the media hype going, being on ESPN every day with one of the biggest musical acts and 2 of your biggest stars makes a lot of sense. Fingers crossed. I hope they pull it off, but it's going to be hard to change the opinion of some fans. You know, I'm sure they've got their mind made up, but if you don't have your mind made up about how to get super hard, Blue Chew Gold can help. The future of erectile function is here. We're talking Blue Chew Gold is changing the way millions of men are having sex this year in 2026. You've got the new arousal boosting formula that combines passion and performance into one tablet that dissolves under your tongue for super fast onset. There's no more waiting for a pill to kick in. There's no more moments ruined by performance anxiety. Just the results you want when you want them. Most ED meds only focus on blood flow, but Blue Chew Gold goes further by combining 2 ingredients for blood flow with 2 for mental arousal and connection. So you're not just physically ready, you're actually in the mood too. And this type of innovation is why Blue Chew Gold is the #1 brand in erectile function. The process is super simple and it's all online. Get started today at bluechew.com and go for the gold. Turbocharge your love life and make it easy to get hard. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners right now. When you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the 3rd for free with the promo code 83weeks. That's promo code 83weeks. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. You know, there's lots to talk about for this year's WrestleMania, and we are going to briefly run through the card. But before we do, I thought we would talk about some of Eric's favorite WrestleMania matches. Let's take a look at Eric's top 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's time to count down the top 5. Brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Coming in at number 5 on Eazy-E's top 5 WrestleMania moments. What a moment it was. WrestleMania 24. Shawn Michaels retiring Old Yeller, Ric Flair. What a story. These guys go back a long, long time. Of course, we all know that once upon a time, Shawn Michaels drew inspiration from Ric Flair, taking photos in middle school and high school, dressing like his favorite wrestler. It meant a lot to Shawn when Rick selected him to be his last opponent. And there may not have been a dry eye in all of the Carolinas that night. Why does it come in at number 5 for you, Eric?
Just had all the elements of what I personally like in professional wrestling, the art of it, that being the story, the emotion, had a great backstory, as you pointed out. And part of it is knowing Rick as well as I do and having worked with Rick. The emotion that we watched as viewers was as real can be. And I think when you connect with that kind of an emotion as a viewer and a fan, even if you're not a fan of Ric Flair, you can't deny the emotion. It's palpable. And for that reason alone, just the emotion that we saw in that match out of Rick and Shawn, when Shawn looked at him from across the ring and said, "I love you." That's a movie moment, man. I mean, I'll always remember that moment. And of course, Rick and Rick's performance. So that's why it does it for me. Just perfect story, executed so well. It was great.
It was also great what you picked for number 4 on Eric's list of the top 5 WrestleMania matches. Bret the Hitman Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. We referenced it earlier. This is the same month where you introduced Dennis Rodman to pay-per-view with Uncensored. It was a down year for ticket sales and revenue for that WrestleMania, but critically, it was the first match immortalized in the WWE Hall of Fame. Why is it number 4 on your list, Eric?
Believability. Again, it's going to be the common denominator, I think, in some of these. It was just, I believed it. The finish, Austin, not willing to tap out, never giving up. I mean, I'm not a big fan of blood, but here's a situation where it fit the moment. It was just so believable. The performers, obviously, it takes two to tango. Both Brett and Steve did such a phenomenal job. There was a real commitment to each other in that ring, meaning to make each other look as good as you possibly can. It was evident because they both look phenomenal.
Coming in at number 3 is Cody Rhodes' favorite match of all time. He says it is the best match of all time, and Eric Bischoff has it at number 3 on his top 5 WrestleMania moments. WrestleMania 18 arguably should have been the main event. Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the icon, against the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, The Rock. I mean, before they even hooked up, they're just staring at each other, and the crowd is going banana, Eric.
You know what? Talk to me about this match beforehand, right? And what everybody else was expecting was going to happen once they stepped into the ring together. Hulk had and he told me this before the match. He said, I think people are going to be surprised. I hope they're ready for it. And what happened as it played out in that match was Rock had to shift gears because of the crowd reaction to Hogan. That wasn't planned. And watching Hulk react to that and kind of take over in terms of calling that match, or at least directing a lot of it, was pretty interesting to me. And again, I probably wouldn't feel as strongly about it had I not known the backstory before even seeing the match. And then, of course, seeing the way it played out just made it kind of extra special for me.
An unbelievable match, an incredible performance, and we'll continue on Eric's top 5 WrestleMania list. Coming in at number 2, a moment that all of us will remember forever. The night the streak ended, Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. I was lucky enough to be in the crowd for this one, Eric, and when the bell rang, I think there was a hushed silence. You could have heard a pin drop in the building because we all just thought they made a mistake. Something's wrong. They're going to have to restart the match. How will they get out of this? And then the graphic pops up on the screen, 21-1, and you're like, oh my God, they did the unthinkable. Comes in at number 2 on your list of the top 5 WrestleMania moments, Eric.
Yeah, and it could have easily been number 1 because it was history. And it was the anticipation, story anticipation, reality, surprise, and action. They killed the anticipation part of it. I mean, in a good way. They blew anticipation up. Everybody tuned in to see if it was possible. What would they do? Who would walk away the winner? There was probably a more intense interest in the actual outcome of the match than there probably has been for anything before. Well, I'll be careful with that. For very few things before or since. It was just done. It was executed so well. And it was history. And for that reason alone, I think it's worthy to be in either with number 1 or number 2.
Well, without further ado, Eric Bischoff's number 1 most important WrestleMania match. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant from WrestleMania 3. I know it wasn't the very first WrestleMania, but it was the main event that made WrestleMania a household word. I think people still talk about WrestleMania 3 with reverence as if it were the biggest WrestleMania of all time. And there have been shows since that sold more tickets or sold more pay-per-views or had a higher grossing gate or certainly had more sponsorship dollars, but perhaps none more important than Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3. It's easy to see why that's your number 1, right, Eric?
That, and so it's that match, made WrestleMania 3, but I think it also made Hulk Hogan, or made WrestleMania, but it also made Hulk Hogan. And in all the years that I knew Hulk, so I have to remind myself that he's not with us any longer, but in all the years, and just the hours and hours and hours I spent listening to Hulk tell stories to other people while I was there, he loved to talk about matches with Randy Savage or anybody. He loved to talk about the great matches he had. But whenever he talked about this match, it was with a reverence for Andre, because Hulk knew Andre made him that night. Andre, in Hulk's mind, really passed the torch that night to him. That's the way he felt, whether it was true or not. That's the way he felt. And he carried that with him till the day he died. I'm sure of it. He loved Andre. He loved what Andre did for him. I think he didn't know going into that match if Andre was going to play or not. It was pretty much up to Andre to do whatever Andre wanted to do. And that's the way Hulk felt, whether it was true or not. That's what he was feeling. He told me that 100 times or more. He wasn't really sure. So that when it finally happened, it had a major impact on Hulk. I know it did. And I think that match not only really made WrestleMania, it also made Hulk Hogan.
What an incredible list you've got here, Eric. You know, number 5, Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair and Flair's retirement. Number 4, Bret and Austin. It made Stone Cold the most famous double turn in history in the first match in the WWE Hall of Fame. And then Rock and Hogan from WrestleMania 18. I mean, Cody Rhodes, the top dog today, says this is the greatest match of all time. The Undertaker became Mr. WrestleMania with the streak. And when it ended, it comes in at number 2 for you. But the Mac Daddy of them all, Hogan Andre, Eric, I got to tell you, I've talked to everybody, whether it's Tony Schiavone or Jim Ross or JBL or Jeff Jarrett. I've talked to so many people this week about their favorite WrestleMania moments. I think you've got the most solid list of all. And I think what I love about it is it's so consistent. These were major moments. These were magical, important moments in the history of fandom. You know, one made Stone Cold, one made Hulkamania, one ended the streak, one ended Ric Flair. I mean, it's what an incredible list. We want to know from you. Let us know below what's in your top 5 WrestleMania moments. I mean, there's so many other great matches that are out there. You could get into ladder matches and, you know, Shawn and Taker and so many others. But I love Eric's list. I think you're probably most aligned with me in your list. And if you're looking to get it lined at home, I want to recommend Rocket Money. You know, I have to admit, a few years ago when I was starting the Jeff Jarrett podcast, I was filing my taxes around the same time, and I got my year-end print off for some of my credit cards. I'll be honest, I was kind of overwhelmed with some of the stuff that once I really started digging through, I realized, hey, man, I got to get a hold of the charges on this card in particular. Rocket Money can help you track all your subscriptions, and it even gives you the ability to cancel your unwanted ones within the app. You can do this in just a few taps. It saves users over $880 million in canceled subscriptions so far. The automatic transaction categorization across accounts is a game changer. You've even got customizable categories so you can sort of sort the way you want to. You can even add tags to reveal spending patterns. If you're really getting serious about saving money, setting a budget, creating some goals, you want Rocket Money. It's going to give you the personalized insights. It's going to give you the regular reports. You're even going to get real-time alerts. You're going to know about upcoming bills. You're going to see refunds happening. You're even going to know when you've got a low balance. It's going to give you an alert. This is a real life hack. If you're serious about taking control of your finances, I want to recommend Rocket Money. You're going to love how the app will consolidate your checking and your savings and your loans and even your investments all into a single dashboard. And it's going to give you a clear understanding of your financial picture. But what's really cool is the way you can automate savings. That's going to help you build towards those goals. You can even have adjustable amounts and frequency, or you can just go with the old set it and forget it routine. But your financial peace of mind awaits you with Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that will help you find and cancel those unwanted subscriptions, help you monitor your spending, and even help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/83 weeks. That's rocketmoney.com/83 weeks. rocketmoney.com/83 weeks. So, Eric, we are right around the corner from WrestleMania. We know that hour 1 of night 1 and night 2 are both going to be free on ESPN2. It's going to work as almost like a push to drive traffic to ESPN Unlimited. I'm sure as we're talking on Thursday, the ESPN coverage is going to continue to be through the roof. But the two matches that are on ESPN2 on Saturday are two of the biggest influencers in all of wrestling. Logan Paul teaming with IShowSpeed and Austin Theory. So you got the tag champs and IShowSpeed on one side, the Usos and LA Knight on the other. If you had to pick a winner in this one, Eric, who would you pick?
I'm going to go with Logan Steve on this one.
I think that's a fair bet. Let's take a look at the other match on ESPN2. I think this will be the show stealer of night one. Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre in an unsanctioned match live on ESPN2. If this is the match they close with, I think they pull out all the stops. I think we'll see some crazy stunts. I think we'll see some over-the-top violence. Who do you see getting their hand raised in this one, Eric?
I don't know, man. There's a great case for either one of these guys. This is going to be a brutal match, brutal in the sense of physicality. These are two beasts, and they are definitely going to be in beast mode. I think Fatu's half crazy to begin with. That's where he starts from. He starts from half crazy when he gets up out of bed in the morning. And I think McIntyre's got something to prove. So you take two physically tough, capable guys, throw them in the ring. You got one guy that's half nuts, that's on a mission, and the other guy that's just on a flat-out mission to prove something. It's going to be a great match.
It's going to be an incredible match. Then the regular ESPN Unlimited broadcast will begin. I think we're going to have a women's four-way for the tag titles. Nia Jax and Lash Legend defending against Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, and Bayley and Lyra, and the Bella Twins. I think Flair and Alexa may walk away with some new hardware here. What do you expect?
That's where I'd put my money. No doubt about it. It's just all the horsepower is on that side of the equation.
For the women's intercontinental title, it's AJ Lee against Becky Lynch. Once upon a time, this would have been considered a dream match. Now it's happening at WrestleMania. And for the women's intercontinental, do you see the man leaving with the belt, or is it AJ's time?
AJ Styles, AJ Lee, threw me for a loop. No, it's Becky. I think it's Becky with serious heat. AJ's a sympathetic, kind of sympathetic babyface. I see Becky getting more heat and walking away.
Seth Rollins and Gunther. A lot of people assumed Seth Rollins may be doing something with Logan Paul. Allegedly, we thought we may be getting Gunther and Rey Mysterio. I think what we're getting instead may steal the show. Seth and Gunther, it's hard to call. What would you pick?
I would have to pick Gunther just because I think there's a long-term commitment there. But Seth is pretty versatile and is one of those players that you can throw into a spot and change direction pretty quickly with great story. It'll all depend on the finish, but if I have to put my money down, I'm putting it on Gunther.
Yeah, I would say Gunther's going to win. Maybe there's some outside interference in this one. We'll see. Stephanie Vacour is going to be defending against Liv Morgan. Is it Liv's night, or does Stephanie retain?
Sometimes I get these impressions based on the promotion and marketing and the volume of exposure I'm seeing. Now, granted, Liv probably gets a lot more social media exposure anyway, but I'm just with the way that WWE has positioned her over the last 6 weeks outside of the show, I'm putting my money on Liv.
Yeah, I think I would too. The main event, Cody Rhodes is going to be taking on Pat McAfee. Randy Orton's going to be there too. What do you think?
I think they're going to have to. I think something special is going to happen here. I don't know what it is. Don't want to try to hint or suggest. I do. I'm not even sure what that would be. But I just feel like this match, for a lot of reasons, and not just because of the stutter step, so to speak, creatively, I just feel like Cody needs, not needs in a desperate way, but to reach the next level of whatever Cody Rhodes is going to be, something radical has to happen here. I don't know what it is, but I feel it. And I think Randy walks away with it, but I think we come out of it with a slightly different Cody Rhodes.
Buddy, sign me up. I think it's going to be heavy on story. Can't wait to see it. And I'm ready to talk about Sunday too. They're going to start that first hour again on ESPN2 for free. How about starting with a ladder match? Penta, perhaps the hottest star in all of WWE internationally, defending against Javon Evans, Dragon Lee, JD McDonough, Rusev, and Rey Mysterio. The legend himself, Rey Mysterio, returning. Rusev going to do his best catcher all night, I suppose. This is going to be a car crash. It's going to be a spectacle. I'm glad they're getting time on ESPN to show, I don't know, this crazy stunt show of an Intercontinental title match. Who do you think gets their hand raised, Eric?
God, I don't have any feel for this. Zero feel for this one. I'm just going to go out on a limb. Evans, I think. Either Evans or Penta. I don't think it'll be Ray. I don't think it'll be Rusev. I'm really playing process of elimination here, but I think either Evans or Penta will get it.
I'm going to pick Penta in that one as well. Here's the one everybody's talking about. Also on ESPN2. What a move this is for ESPN. Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi. Oba has more momentum heading into a Brock Lesnar match than anybody that I can recall in a long, long time, maybe ever. Will he keep it up, or is it Lesnar's night?
Damn. Oh, this is a tough one. There's such a good rationale behind either one. I'm liking Oba. Maybe I'm hoping Oba or liking it. And Brock is, massive respect for Brock, but I'm looking at this from a business perspective. And I just think some of the interviews I've heard from Brock, it's a different Brock. It's a more generous Brock. I think Brock has convinced himself or accepted the fact that his role is a little different now than it has been up until this point, and he's very comfortable with it, which is why I think I would bet on Oba.
I do want to ask you, how long do you think the match goes? There's been a little discussion online about should they keep this short or not. I know that Oba has had, pay-per-view style matches that were, 11, 13, 17 minutes. But we've also seen him since he's been on the main roster, just mowing through guys, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, a minute. Would you make this, if you're going with Oba, would you have him beat Brock quickly like we saw Goldberg do a decade ago? Or would you do something different?
I would want to do something different. I would want to take advantage of the fact that people are expecting, you talked about it earlier, managing expectations. If the expectations are that Oba doesn't really do, long matches because he doesn't really have the tools in the toolbox quite yet. If he's capable, it would be great to see a good 18, 20-minute match out of these two. But if it's not, I don't see it happening fast. I don't see it like Darby Allin MJF squash match, but I'd see it being under 12 minutes unless he's capable and he can pull it out and surprise a lot of people and over deliver. That's the art of, manage expectations so that you can over deliver. There's another part of that, right? Yes. Manage expectations so that you can over deliver. And I think this is a case where by managing the expectations and over-delivering for Oba, that will get him over as much as the finish itself.
I kind of like both of these guys being bigger guys when they wrestle smaller guys. It really showcases the size difference and how big and powerful they are when they start throwing guys around. I'd like to see this one be short, like a real heavyweight boxing match back in the day, like a Tyson fight. I would like if this was a couple of minutes. I'd be okay with that. We'll see what they do. On the actual pay-per-view card itself on ESPN Unlimited, we've got the United States title on the line. Sami Zayn seems to be evolving as a character, and Trick Williams feels like the next big thing. I made the comparison earlier this week. This feels a little bit like when John Cena wrestled the Big Show for the U.S. title on his way to becoming world champion. Do you expect this to be the anointing of Trick Williams, or does Sami retain?
Trick. Sammy's been there a long time. I think it's Trick's time.
It's also time that we return to the Demon, Finn Balor. It's been quite a while since we've seen the Demon. and he's going to be taking on one of the hottest characters of the last 5 years in WWE, Dominic Mysterio. Of course, these are both OG Judgment Day guys. What do you expect here, Balor or Dominic?
Dominic, definitely Dominic. So much equity in that character. They're not going to do anything to mess with it now.
The women's title will be on the line, and it looks like it's a poster from a superhero movie. We all knew it would happen eventually. Jade Cargill defending her title against Rhea Ripley. Jade Cargill has been a star since she first debuted in WWE, but Rhea Ripley has quietly become one of the more decorated women in WWE history. Is it Rhea's night, or is it still Jade at the end of the night?
Rhea, there's something special about Rhea. Don't know what it is, can't put my finger on it, but part of it is I just like her, so I'm biased a little bit. I set her up. I don't know if I told you this. I had a friend who had a nephew who was mentally impaired, but a fan, wrestling fan, huge wrestling fan. In fact, that wrestling was the only thing that this kid really cared about, right? So my friend called me, and he's a very famous actor, actually. And he called me and said, hey, told me the story. My nephew's a huge fan of Rhea Ripley. Can you possibly get her on the phone just to say hello to him? It's a big ask. And for me, I don't like asking those kinds of things. I just hate it. But in this case, I wanted to for the kid. So I called and set it up. And I was on the phone to introduce the kid to Rhea. And then I, basically bowed out. Now I listened. And I listened to Rhea talk to this young man for 15 minutes, somewhere in there. And she was so genuine and treated that kid so well that now, I'm always going to be a Rhea guy. She was a classy person on that call. I don't know what she's like outside of that phone call, but that phone call made me a fan for life.
We're all pulling for Rhea in that one. The main event, Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton on night 1, but night 2, some people would argue the real main event is the night 2. It's Roman Reigns in his 11th WrestleMania main event against CM Punk in his 2nd WrestleMania main event. Of course, last year Punk was in the night 1 main event. People said, oh, it doesn't count. It wasn't night 2. Well, it is this year, by God. Is it Punk or Roman come Sunday night?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell on a lot of these, but if I have to pick one, I'm going Punk. I'm not sure I know why. It's just a feeling. But damn, his promos, and I mean, look, that promo we saw in the show early on, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there's something slightly different about Punk in the way he connects. And the momentum is behind him right now. Do I see WWE going in a different direction and going with Roman and Punk in a story, continuing down the road? Possibly, in which case all bets are off. But if I had to bet, I'd bet on Punk.
I know one of your favorite events over WrestleMania weekend is the Hall of Fame. I quickly want to remind everybody it's happening Friday before SmackDown. Stephanie McMahon is your co-headliner along with AJ Styles. The legacy inductee is Sid Vicious and Bad News Brown. The celebrity inductee is Dennis Rodman. And unfortunately, here's a spoiler. Eric is in Philadelphia for Real American Freestyle. So he is not going to be the person to induct Rodzilla. The match they're putting in this year is Hogan and Andre from WrestleMania 3, an excellent follow-up to last year's debut, which was the WrestleMania 13 match between Brett and Austin. But the two guys I think you're probably thinking about the most this weekend are Demolition. Your old pals Bill Eadie and Barry Darsow. Demolition, long time coming, finally going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I know it's going to be crazy for you this week, but at some point when you get a chance, you're probably going to check out the Hall of Fame. It's your favorite event, right?
I love the Hall of Fame. The emotions are real. You see a different side of people often. And I just love it. I just love it. The emotion is at its peak. I wish I could be there. And Dennis called me the other night, and if I could be there, I would, but I can't. But I'll be thinking about it and thinking about Dennis and everybody else. I'd love to be there for it. I would love to see all of them in person, enjoying their moment. Barry Darsow, my wife went to high school with Barry, and they knew each other as, teenagers. So there's, I hired Barry's kid in TNA. I mean, we have a good relationship with some of these people, and you like to see people, whether you have a relationship with them or not, you see people enjoying that moment. It is a special moment, and it's fun to live it vicariously through all of them.
Watch the Hall of Fame on ESPN Unlimited. That's on Friday. And on Saturday, hey, man, just DVR WrestleMania and watch Real American Freestyle. Enjoy it on the Fox Nation app. You want to talk about emotion, go relive 1 through 7 right now for free. Fox Nation, it's just a few bucks a month, and not only can you watch the archives, but you can be a part this Saturday in Philadelphia. If you're in the area, tickets are on sale now, realamericanfreestyle.com. Eric, hope you have a blast, man. Can't wait to talk about WrestleMania and RLF08 next week right here.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. We'll see you next week on 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff.